HPE Private Cloud Business Edition, think of it as an on-prem solution with the same ease of management you'd get from public cloud. Things like self-service provisioning, ease of scalability, and built-in cost controls. So what's the secret sauce here? Well, the secret sauce is disaggregated hardware that separates the servers, the networking, and the storage, yet manages them through a single modern interface. See, when hyper-converged HCI solutions like Nutanix and Dell's VxRail first emerged, they solved many issues by bundling building blocks and simplifying updates. But what we learned was scalability was tough. If you needed more compute or more storage, typically you ended up with a problem because rarely did those two things scale the same. Realistically, what would happen is you may have your workloads grow in a compute fashion where you needed more processor, more cores, and more memory, or your data grew and you needed more storage. But because of the building blocks, the only way to scale would be to add another node. Not only that, the node had to be either like or very similar. Otherwise, it wasn't compatible. So what that meant is you ended up over provisioning something in almost all cases. So that was the big number one. Number two, let's say you're a smaller shop. And let's say when you were first sold this, it made a lot of sense because maybe you needed somewhere between 4 and 10 servers for that workload. So when you spread all of that storage out, it all matched up pretty well. However, over the last 5 years, server hardware is getting way more powerful. Okay. So we're seeing data centers shrink in compute size, whereas one server could be as powerful as 11 previous generation servers. So think about the shrinking there. Okay, well, now when we look at HCI, if you had a cluster anywhere less than 10 nodes, you may actually be able to do that in 1 or 2 nodes today. Well, as we know, when it comes to resiliency and spreading data, 1 or 2 nodes just doesn't work. Okay, you typically need 3 or 4 nodes to spread that data across. Think of a RAID 5 set. Well, HCI worked the exact same way. So now small shops are now left in a weird place where they either have to overbuy in a refresh or they have to think of different options. So that's number 2. Number 3, we're talking about large enterprise infrastructure, talking 50 or more nodes in a solution. In those situations, there's a major issue when it comes to performance bottlenecks, because the more nodes you add to the cluster, think of it, the more nodes and that data spread across all of those nodes as the environment's talking to each other, because that data has to communicate against all these different nodes, you get IO latency. Okay. And then that becomes your bottleneck. So there's 3 major concerns when it comes to HCI. So while HCI was a great solution and it solved a lot of problems, today there's just some major flaws there that can really cause problems for customers. So need to think about how we're going to overcome those challenges